Shit We've Read is a proud member of Bilo Network, a network of geeky podcasts.
Please visit shitwe'veread.com to support the show.
Now let's talk about some books. All right, welcome back, folks. First episode of the new year. This is Shit We've Read, a sci-fi and fantasy book podcast hosted by some geeky friends. I'm one of your hosts this evening, Bella Romero, and we have my co-host, Jason Rico. Welcome back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It's been so long since I've seen you.
I know. I feel like I haven't talked to you since last year.
Yeah, even though I talked to you, 2 days ago?
Yeah, I think yesterday, actually, officially.
But obligatory Jad joke from Rico, as per usual. And then we have a guest host, she might sound a little familiar, Megan Wilson. Welcome back, our vegan foodie, animal welfare advocate, and lover of spooky things. How have you been doing?
I've been good. I can't believe it's mid-January already.
Yeah, that thanks for that reminder. You're right. It is mid-January already.
Well, to be fair, for us here in California, it's been raining for I feel like 3 weeks straight. And so I feel like that doesn't really count. That's just
rainy days don't count.
Yeah. Well, and I was in Chicago for 1 week of that too. So I'm like, don't tell me I just lost a quarter of my month.
Oh, geez.
Don't tell me that. I mean, Chicago was fun. I had a lot of fun. But I did not get to any bookstores, which is never a happy tale. But we did do a lot of thrifting and things. But it's been a busy new year already. So it's crazy that the month is already halfway gone. Well, what have you guys been reading? I've read this book, which the book is, we always forget to say the name of the book at the beginning of the episode. I do it every single time. Okay, guys, we are reading The Shadow in the Glass by JJA Harwood. And like I said, I have not been to a bookstore. Well, actually, that's a lie. How many of us, show of hands, how many of us went to the Barnes & Noble closing this last week? And Natomas. Rico,
just you and me,
all
Bella.
did.
No.
Yeah. Wait, you didn't go, Megan?
Nose goes. No, I don't leave my house. Are you crazy?
Well, it was up to 40% off, every single book, and some books were 50% off. I mean, I'd leave the house for that.
This might be a sin, but to be a guest on a book podcast, and I'm strictly audiobooks.
That's true. That's true.
I haven't been able to sit and read a real book without my mind wandering in 20 different directions since, I don't know, high school. So
absolutely fair. Yeah. Reading is reading. I love audiobooks, so I get it. I don't really read physical books anymore either. I feel like since I've just really embraced the Kindle and audiobook trend for my eyesight, and then audiobooks for walking around the house, going on a walk. It's just easier.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Can read in more convenient places. I just haven't bought as many physical books, but now being on the podcast and having Rico and Laura to influence me, and Emma Skies, I definitely buy a lot more physical books. And I definitely bought some collector's editions.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Definitely bought some collector's editions I did not need. So shit we're reading has been, limited. Shit I've been buying has been a lot. But Rico, have you done any reading lately?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
I think the most recent big read I read was Hellbent, which is the sequel to Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo.
And should I read it?
Yeah, I think you should. Yeah.
Okay, because I've liked Ninth House a lot.
Yeah, and I think if you enjoyed Ninth House, you'll enjoy this. It's
Is it the same universe or the
same universe,
characters?
same characters?
Okay.
If anybody has read that and remember where it ends, this one kind of picks up right after, and it continues off of that cliffhanger and continues the story. If you like that first one, I think you'll like the second one.
Excellent. That's all I needed to hear.
Yeah. I don't think I liked it quite as much. Just slightly less.
The sequel's never as good.
Yeah.
The sequel's never as good.
Yeah, but it was good. It was good.
Unless it's Shrek.
Oh, Shrek 2 was excellent.
Dude, that's
Megan,
the sequel you pull out? Shrek.
You know
Exception
what?
to the rule, man.
Megan, that was a hot take, but I agree.
It's been so long since I've seen those. I can't agree or disagree. I'm just gonna.
I smell a marathon coming on.
I swear we watched it during our quarantine movie club.
I don't think we
so.
did, but you know what? We should. Let's
We
bring that back.
I think that was on the short list of film series to get to, and then
I think we just totally dropped off movie club because the world reopened and things.
Maybe you did it with your other movie
cricket.
Wow.
No, that club ended soon after as well. So like I definitely watched them during quarantine. Like there was definitely a Shrek movie marathon in this household, but yeah, could not tell you who I watched that with other than Sander. Megan, have you been listening to any books lately?
This book, anybody who knows me knows that I'm a binger and a completionist. And so I have been stuck in Critical Role Campaign 1 podcasts lately, just like podcasts of their first campaign. And I have a long way to go, and nothing else can come into my life until that is done, except for this book, because of course I had to make an exception. But
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I can't jump around from like book to show to whatever. I have to consume it all at once.
That's fair. I think I can consume one thing from one medium at a time. So like one TV show and one book and one audiobook was a little messy this time around because I'm listening to I forgot I've been listening to A Court of Thorn and Roses, which is incredible, like really good. I'm kicking myself for not picking that up sooner because I've really enjoyed it. But listening to it and then coming back to this book, it does take me a minute to be like, where are we in this universe? Because it's magical, it's gothic. You know, you've got some similar themes: female protagonist, female voice, female gaze. So like, you get into it, and you're like,
who's this character again? Who was
Where am I right now? Yeah,
How does this world work? Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I got to get back into it for a second. So this book has been on the forefront of my mind for the last couple days. All right, so about the book. We are reading The Shadow in the Glass by JJA Harwood, she, her. It is a historical fiction, fantasy retelling of Cinderella. I think we'll get into it more, but I'd say it's kind of a loose fairy tale retelling. It's based off. There's some premise stuff pulled from Cinderella, but I wouldn't call it a straight fairy tale retelling.
Very loose.
Very loose. Published May 4th, 2021. And our synopsis will be read by the beautifully voiced Jason Rico. Jason, can you take it over?
Before I do, I'm going to say I think The Lion King was a closer adaptation of Hamlet than this book was of Cinderella. Which gives my thoughts on that. Anyhow, okay, so the synopsis. Okay, here we go. This is off of Goodreads. Once upon a time, Ella had wished for more than her life as a lowly maid. Now forced to work hard under the unforgiving, lecherous gaze of the man she once called stepfather, Ella's only refuge is in the book she reads by candlelight, secreted away in the library she isn't permitted to enter. One night, among her beloved books of far-off lands, Ella's wishes are answered. At the stroke of midnight, a fairy godmother makes her an offer that will change her life. 7 wishes, hers to make as she pleases. But each wish comes at a price, and Ella must decide whether it's one she's willing to pay.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, content warning for some of you listeners out there. There is mention of rape and sexual assault, abuse, pedophilia, incest/romance between adopted siblings. Although I would say the term siblings is loose. We'll talk about that more. And abortion and miscarriage. That's definitely pretty graphic for viewers out there. I think that one warrants a little bit more of a warning. Along with the rape and sexual assault and abuse, those are pretty strong themes. The other ones are smaller. Pedophilia is kind of secondary to those 3 that I mentioned. It's in there, but it's the other stuff is bigger
in the context
of the
historical book. Yes, how things were at the time. Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, this is definitely set in the past, and the story explores that. And there's actually some allusion to that by our fairy godmother, which I think we'll get into more in the spoilers section. But first impressions. Does anyone want to share their first impressions of the book? Non-spoiler first impressions.
Megan, you go first.
I liked it, but I completely agree with Jason in the fact that it's like a very loose interpretation. But overall, I think it could have just been marketed as its own, here's a story, and maybe if they changed the name of the main character, I wouldn't have put two and two together that like, oh, this is a Cinderella adaptation. I just would have been like, hey, this is a cool story.
Yeah, I feel like that was a lot of the comments on Goodreads. Was similar to your feedback of just like, if you didn't call it a Cinderella retelling, it might have been received differently. And I agree, it is different. I still really liked it. And I also think that it wasn't so different that I couldn't get into it. I think it kept it interesting that it was different. It wasn't the same, like, we all know how Cinderella goes. There are no spoilers there. But this is definitely not that book. It does not follow the arc of Cinderella at all. This is far darker, far more twisted, and like there's morality and ethics in here. There are a lot of questions about human morality and ethics, and a lot more like unreliable narrator kind of parts of it. Again, not trying to get into too many spoilers. But overall, I mean, you would recognize that there's a stepfather instead of a stepmother. You have the fact that Ella was not born into money. So she was born to servants, which I think is different than Cinderella, who became a servant. So you kind of have that class divide in there between her and her prince, which is the adopted sibling. I don't think that's too spoilery. So, it is different. And you see how she kind of overcomes some of her challenges in her life, being a servant, which is very different from Cinderella. So I don't know. I liked that it wasn't the same Cinderella retelling, but it was confusing at first. Like, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But Rika, what were your first impressions?
I will start off by saying that I thought it was really nicely written. I thought,
beautifully described.
Beautiful, like beautiful, easy to go, like to consume. It was a nice, easy read in terms of the writing. That said, like we've said, it's not a retelling of Cinderella at all. I don't think it is at all, and I honestly think that's misleading. I had to look back into the historical version of Cinderella, like not the Disney one, because those are definitely nice and pretty. It's like, and a lot of these older fairy tales are kind of dark and gruesome. So I look back and actually, no, it's pretty fairly what we know, which is not the story. So it being marketed as Cinderella, and this is not that whatsoever. I think the Cinderella elements are like sprinkled on top. It's like, oh, here's a mention of a woman being a servant. Here's a mention of some shoes. Here's some wishes. But even the wishes, this might be slightly spoilery, but it's kind of in the description or in the synopsis. I think this is a retelling of Faust way more than it is Cinderella. So if you go into this wanting a retelling of Cinderella, I think you're going to be very disappointed. That said, also thought this book was really dark and depressing and didn't have any joy whatsoever. And
I completely agree.
And when I finished the book, I was like, what did I read? What was the purpose of this book?
I was so sad.
I found joy in it, and I'll get into that a little bit later with more spoilery.
Please tell me where it was.
But I did. You know what? And okay, you know what? Non-spoilery. It was the hope. Right?
Whose hope?
Hers.
Every time she felt like things were going to turn around.
We
got to get to spoilers to talk about that.
I will jump to spoilery, but yes, that I found joy. I mean, she may not have done what I would have done with the opportunities that she was given, but
God, I want to talk about that so bad too. She sucked at wishing. Holy crap.
Well, so just to finish up Rico's thought, because I do want to echo that I'm just laughing because Megan, the hope. I didn't feel a lot of hope. It felt naive and delusional.
Yeah.
But that's okay. To each their own. We'll get into it more. I want to talk about it. But I think just after the holidays and the stress and being tired, I'm like, I was looking for lighthearted. My friends are reading Red, White, and Royal Blue. And I'm like, can I read that again? That sounds great. That's a little bit more of what I was hoping for. But yeah, let's get into the spoilers then. So if you're listening and you don't want to know why Megan thinks there's hope in this book, we very much disagree with her. Turn back, pause, finish the book, proceed with caution. But we're going to get into it. So I don't know. Who wants to start with their spoiler first impression? I kind of want to hear Rico and then Megan.
Is Eleanor supposed to be a protagonist? Like, because I did not like her. I had such a hard time liking her, caring about her, like being on her side. Like, she's the main character we follow. I'm like, but am I supposed to be on her side? Because I'm not at all.
Yeah.
And so again, I don't know what the point of the story was supposed to be. Like, usually fairy tales they convey some sort of morals, right? Like, don't go after dark, be a good person, beauty's only skin deep, blah, 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 blah. I feel like the moral of the story is supposed to be careful what you wish for. It's like a very monkey's paw. You make a wish, there's always a cost. But I feel like even the premise of that was built upon this woman really just wanting to protect herself from being raped. And so I feel like that's such a
Do you have a problem with that, Rico?
No. What I'm saying, hold on. Let me finish my thought.
I'm just kidding.
I think that is such
a man raises his voice.
No, what I'm trying to say is that is such a understandable want, obviously, right? To protect yourself and not have that happen to you. And then I feel like she is punished for wanting that by being given these wishes that never really pan out the way she wants. And so I kind of wish, like, if she had just like, I just want more in life. I'm not happy with what I have in life. I want more. And then she was punished for that. I'd be more on board with the premise of the book. But she just wanted to escape this predator and then is punished for it.
So you bring up a good point that I feel like we need to step back and kind of tell our listeners really quick a little bit of that premise that you're mentioning, because I don't think it's explained as well in the synopsis. So we said that there were 7 wishes, but what you don't know is the fairy godmother appears to her at the stroke of midnight one night after she cuts her finger on a book and blood is spilt on the book.
Yeah, it's like a grimoire. There's like spells and stuff in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not a normal fairy. It's not like the Grimm Tales of the Brothers Grimm or whatever. It's a magic book. It's clearly dark. It's a black book. Like you could not be leading the audience more with the description.
Yeah, and it's mentioned in the synopsis that she reads a lot. So she's read every single book in that library, and this one is like, I've never seen this.
She's like, I've never seen this book.
So something's up with the book.
And when she picks up the book and cuts her finger and it strikes midnight, a fairy godmother appears. Not a fairy godmother, guys. This is definitely like a creepy old woman that comes out of the shadows and whose eyes are just black holes. Like picture like a demon from Buffy, like black eyes. So I would not have said fairy godmother, right? Even in the synopsis.
Again,
like I do feel like, again, the misleading. Like they definitely leaned into the Cinderella, and I'm like, you didn't need to. You could have said like Faustian Cinderella vibes.
Well, more like Fae.
Cinderella retelling. Huh?
More like Fae.
Yeah.
Not fairy
more
godmother.
Like Fae.
Right.
Yeah.
Like old school Fae, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So so you get 7 wishes. She tells her you can have 7 wishes. But at the end, after the 7th wish, you have to give me your soul. And Eleanor thinks, like, I can trick this fairy. I'll just never make the 7th wish. And again, that's like where the, you can't always get what you want. Be careful what you wish for. Like, magic comes at a cost. But that's not going to end well for her. You know that this book has 7 parts to it. So each part is based on a wish that is made throughout the book and the consequences of such wish. And so Rico, I feel like now your stuff might make a little bit more sense to folks.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. I just feel like we should mention. And then she learns after making her first wish that the price is a life. The price is that something has to lose its life. So the first wish, she wishes for shoes the color of the moonlight. So glass slippers, right? Like they're essentially the glass slippers. And her master, her stepfather, his prized canary bird dies. And she doesn't really put that together until the second wish, in which what is she? She wishes for one of the main housekeepers to just stop because she's bullying her. She's like, for once, I wish you would just stop. And that's like at nighttime-ish. And then by the next morning, that girl is found dead in the garden in a water trough. And Ella discovers the body because she is the first one to wake up in the morning and the last one to go to sleep because she's in charge of the fires. Cinders, Ella, like, that's tale as old as time. So I think we find that as she makes wishes, the death gets more and more consequential, which is like what kind of Rico you were talking about is like, so she's just trying to escape this household. She's trying to escape a bully. The first wish was obviously frivolous. She was like, it didn't really happen. Like none of that was real. I should test it by wishing for shoes. So a canary dies, like no big deal. But it does start to get a little bit more extreme. And I agree with you. I felt like magic comes at a cost, but usually it kind of makes sense. Like if you wish for somebody to stop, they might die. That made sense to me. But there were some that were like, so the next wish is she wishes that her stepbrother / like child, I would say they were more like childhood friends. Like they weren't raised as siblings. Like it was very clear that she was like an orphan that her mom adopted because her mom was a servant.
Yeah, it's like legally siblings because her master is her legal guardian. But, right. There was always a sort of divide. There was always a
separation. Like not just gender but class. Like she was being raised to be a lady but was born a servant. Like she was legally adopted by this woman and taken care of for a few years, but did not grow up with him. So I don't know. I feel like that's why I said, listeners, that I didn't feel it was as big. It wasn't triggering to me, but if that's something that you have concerns with, this is definitely part of the story. And that she starts to have feelings for him. And she wishes for him to not marry this other girl. She says, I wish he would change his mind, which he already was kind of changing his mind. And this is where I agree with you, Rico, because at this point I'm like, okay, so nothing big should happen. Like he's already on his way. Like maybe another canary dies, right? To like get this guy to like solidify his decision. And then like an entire street is shut down by this catastrophic carriage crash.
Multiple people die.
Multiple people die. A child dies. I was like, I don't feel like this was equal to what was wished for.
No,
at all.
So many
first two, sure, but this one I discuss. Rico, go off now.
My God,
Megan, go off. Somebody.
There's so many things that this character didn't do that I'm like, why didn't you do it? And that would be ask a freaking question and be like, hey, I've noticed that the deaths get like more and more severe. Is that a thing? Or are you just being a biatch? Right? Like I just feel like she is relatable on many levels, not necessarily to me, but if I am thinking of a character of the time who is not educated, these are essentially what I'm equating to like Bridgerton type times, so she's book smart because she has read, but not because she has had any sort of formal learning or education or life experience. She's 16, right? In the book?
17.
17. Yeah.
So she's just a little dummy and she doesn't think to make these smart decisions or ask the questions with her wishes, which are essentially, I equate to Horcruxes because, 7 parts, you have to kill somebody each time and then your soul is gone. You know what I mean? It's just very, very one-to-one for me. But just ask a freaking question, girl. Obviously, like she's talked to the black-eyed woman. She talked to her on other occasions and asked her questions.
Yes, she is engaging. She does kind of give information.
Yeah, but she never
not always, but at least ask a question.
She never thought to be like, hey, yo, what's going to happen if I wish for this? You know, what's the level? She just kind of assumed that the black-eyed woman was just going to, you know, screw her over, but she never really gave her a chance to be like, hey, yeah, here's the consequence. Or, hey, do you want to pick who kicks the bucket?
Right. And I think she kind of learns her lesson after this one. Right? Because the next one, when she, and this is the trigger warning comes into effect this chapter, she decides to like fully engage in an affair with Charles and obviously becomes pregnant because this is like what, the 18th century. There is no birth control and they are just going at it like bunnies. And she does become pregnant. And for her station, she cannot marry him without his father's consent. And because he's her legal guardian, his consent for her as well. Like he has to approve the marriage kind of on both sides. And she makes a deal with him that she will find a way to abort the baby if he will pay for her to live in a cottage, like give her a house and a servant, which she hopes is one of her friends in the household who she's hoping to help avoid being raped by him, by Mr. Pembroke. And she does take like turpentine and herbs.
She does make efforts before the wish to
she does
abort
make
the
efforts.
child. Yeah.
And it takes her guys, just pause. She does take forever to realize she's pregnant. Like there were a good, I don't know what, like 10, 15 pages or 10, 15 minutes of reading of like, oh yeah, I had these oysters and they hurt my tummy. But like everyone else got better, but I was still sick. And like, oh, my dress is kind of tight today.
And the smell of onions is making me nauseous.
The smell makes me something about her perfume makes me sick. And it's like, you are pregnant.
Yeah.
Like you've seen enough pregnant girls in this household. Like,
she's a dummy. She's a
very naive.
Idiot.
Yeah. Very naive. So she gets pregnant and he does want to marry her. He is like, I want to be with you. We will figure out a way. They're going to run away together. His dad figures it out because he's like looking through his mom's stuff to get his mom's engagement ring for her. And then he has to disappear and the old man finds her and is like, I know what you've done. You can't have my son. Like, I won't let you marry. She's like, well, make me a deal. And he says, sure, I'll give you the house. I'll give you money for a servant and I'll give you an allowance. But you can't have the baby. I don't want anything tying my son to you for the rest of his life. And she goes, fine, I'll take care of it. And she tries to do it herself. She tries to take the herbs and turpentine. Ultimately is not successful. So we think. I think she waits like a day before she knows, or like that night she decides to make the wish. And that is when she asks, like, no one else will get hurt. It'll just be this baby, right? And the fairy, the fae, does agree. Yes, that'll be the consequence, like a life for a life.
And that was the one time she was pretty empathetic. I feel like the black-eyed woman was really kind of like, I know what you want from me. Is this what you want? Like she showed emotion in that instance. So I don't think that she's just a full-on like evil entity, you know?
Yeah, it said like a flash of sympathy or like empathy in her eyes. And yeah, the first time that she like, that the fairy or the fae or whatever she is, you know, hesitated giving her what she wanted.
This was a turning point for me for both characters, both Eleanor and the black-eyed woman. This is where I stopped caring about Eleanor at all because she was
not what I expected.
She was so quick to be like, yeah, give me a house and give me money, and then I'll end this relationship. Like, this is like what? Like that's all it takes is you'll drop Charles instantly, even though he cares about you, even though he was down for the baby, even though he was down to run away. Like,
well, she was scheming. She was like, give me security, give me a better status than what I'm at now while I think of how to make my next move. I think that was her actually.
Yeah, I mean, she was always like scheming, but I don't know. Like, I was already teetering on how I felt about her. And then the fact that she's like, yeah, okay, give me a house and give me money and I'll bounce. It's like, okay, I don't like you anymore. But also to your point about the black-eyed woman being somewhat empathetic, this is really where I started to question, like, who is the black-eyed woman?
Mm-hmm.
What is she really? Is she a demon? Is she the devil? Is she a fae? Like, and we never get told that.
Is she Ella's own subconsciousness?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we never get told anything. And yeah, sometimes things are open to interpretation and that's fun and all, but like in this instance, I really wanted to know who the heck is this woman?
One thing I did like about this book is that we got a lot of self-reflection. We got a lot of Eleanor's thoughts, and a lot of them repeated themselves, but it was very realistic to me, of her constantly going over the same ideas in her mind. And this is what I want. This is what I don't want. Is this moral? Is this right? Oh, well, I'm just not going to think about it. I felt like it was a realistic interpretation of, she's poor. She wanted to be a lady and was given a glimpse of that life, and then it was ripped back away from her. All she wants this entire book is to be a lady again. Also, not to be raped by her house master. But more importantly, kind of later on in the book, she wasn't even more so worried about herself being assaulted. She wanted to protect her friends who were in that house.
I don't think she actually did.
No?
On a surface level, she did, but she never really made an effort. She never used her wishes in a way that actually benefited anybody other than herself.
No, that is correct. And I think it's because she's selfish. I completely agree with that. I think that she is selfish deep down, but she thought, if I could get this for myself, then I'll have the power to free them, right? That's why she asked for Aoife to be taken as her housemaid. After she didn't directly make a wish to make that happen. She was just like, oh, the black-eyed woman didn't do what I expected her to. Or, oh, Mr. Pembroke didn't give me what I asked for. Oh, well, she wasn't completely selfless with her wishes, which she could have been, and she thought about, because she is a selfish person. And I think for someone in her station, that's understandable, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it selfish if her hierarchy of needs, the basic level, is not being met? Is it selfishness?
I'm not saying...
If you're like, I'm not... No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying I think it makes sense that she's thinking of herself, because she literally doesn't have like food and shelter and like peace of mind.
It can be selfish and understandable. It can be both. Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's why I'm like, I don't know if it's like absolute selfishness, to think that way, given where she is.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that like she still cares about her friends through it all. But I also recognize like, yeah, she never at one point was like, I would like all three of my friends and I to have money to live independently from this household. Like, she never says that. Like, everything she does,
she kept looking for Leah.
Her.
She kept searching for Leah. I mean, eventually, it took her a while to get there. But
I think that it was secondary, which makes sense.
Again, meeting your own needs. Yeah.
I think it completely made sense. But it was, a good point if she could have made a wish that was like, I wish Leah was like safe with us in our mansion where none of us have to work a day. There could have maybe been a way, but she was not in that state of mind.
There was no forethought for any of her wishes. She did not. She took everything. That pissed me off so much. The moment, everything.
She was so reactive, not proactive whatsoever.
So reactive. And I was like, this is so frustrating.
Think about this. We have grown up with reading about and watching and listening to stories like this, thinking about, if I had those wishes, how would I handle it?
Exactly.
This is a super naive, young girl back in the day, doesn't have any sort of experience with this type of thing, right? She's read fairy tales, she's read books, but never once did I hear in her inner monologue of, oh, hey, so-and-so used their wishes this way in a book that I read. Maybe I should do it this way. It was all very, I don't know how to navigate life. This is what I want. I don't know how to get there. Shoot. Let me use this wish as a quick fix. So none of it was forethought. And I think, one, because she's a little dummy, right? She's naive. But two, she's just inexperienced. She never thought about this before because she really had no hope. And that's kind of where I get back to like the joy that I found in it, because in her life, right, she talked about in the very beginning of the book, she would sneak off to the library, read books, and that was her one joy in life. After she got the wishes, she never really went back and read again because she had something else to occupy her mind and give her that hope of like, I don't just need to read books to escape my life. I can actually do something to escape the life that I'm in. She didn't necessarily achieve that or do, you know, use the wishes to the best of her ability to get what she wanted. But just having the wishes there made her so much more bold from the beginning of the book to the middle of the book to the very end of the book. Just having those in her back pocket made her be able to survive, essentially. You know, it gave her that hope to be able to push forward and make these more difficult decisions. They didn't necessarily lead her anywhere good, but it gave her that boldness because she had those wishes. She had that hope.
Rico is thinking.
Yeah.
View.
I mean,
you can't see us. I want to throw 2 counterpoints in there, Rico, and then I want to hear your thoughts because I think we're on the same thought process. One, she had read Aladdin because she mentioned it. So she did have some context for the wishes.
Okay.
But I agree that like ultimately, like how would she know what was real or not? But she did have some knowledge. And then second being that I actually didn't feel hope towards the end. At one point she mentioned, I noticed that since I've moved into this home and, you know, moved up in life, as I've become softer, I've lost my like thirst for knowledge. She was like, I haven't read, and she kind of missed it. Like there was longing in that I've been reading things that are shallow and, you know, fluff pieces like romance books and things like that, which nothing wrong with that. Love a good romance book. But for her, she was like, I no longer like search for the atlases. I no longer think creatively. And then her honeymoon brings her back to that. But she does notice that like she's kind of gotten like her inner strength has weakened. And I kind of read it as like, as she gets more and more comfortable, she kind of becomes more desperate with the wishes, not hopeful, like more desperate to keep it. And I didn't feel a lot of hope there, Rico.
Beginning. Yeah. I feel like the more wishes she used, the less hope she had because she was getting more desperate. Definitely. But in the beginning, that was, I feel like, what kind of set her on that path.
Yeah. Rico, what were your thoughts?
I want to reply directly to what Megan said. First of all, I don't like being attacked by you saying or questioning reading as a form of escape. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's all I do all day, every day. Anyhow, but no, I do, I guess, appreciate your takeaway of Eleanor and how these wishes made her, I guess, a fighter, more emboldened, which is not something I kind of took away from the story, but that is a unique perspective that I didn't really see. I mean, I still don't like her, but I can see that. I can see that at least. It did make her more bold and make her more of a fighter, a stupid fighter,
desperate
fighter. You know, ultimately didn't work out, but you know, at least she went out swinging, I guess, or she threw those punches. Well, none of them landed, but she threw them punches.
I feel like she clings onto one thing to try to like save her, right? So at first it was her books. Then it was the idea of the wishes, not necessarily the wishes themselves, but just the idea of what she could do with them. And then towards the end of the book, it was her boo thing, right? It wasn't even about the wishes anymore. It was about him. So that was her escapism, was she just jumped from one thing to the next.
Yeah, and that's why I say I don't think she cared about her fellow servants. Like if you're in danger, right? There's a predator in your house, and he is preying on all these women, including you, and you want to protect yourself. If that first and foremost, you want to protect yourself, but also your friends. That should be your priority. And obviously, Charles coming back throws a wrench in that. But then she shifted her focus to Charles and wanted Charles not to marry Felicity, and so you forget about your homies because now you're in love with Charles. And then oh, you need money, and I just want to be a lady and have money. It's like, no, protect you and your homies.
Mm-hmm.
Like
No,
that
I
should be
agree.
your focus. And
I
so that's
agree,
why
yeah.
it made it really hard for me to care about her. It was like, I don't, and also the formatting of the book and how each part related to a wish, and like you just see it get worse and worse for her, and you know eventually it's not going to work out. Like there's no way in hell that she's going to trick this woman. I hope there is. I hope there's some sort of twist at the end, and I was looking forward to. But ultimately, it kind of just made reading the entire story kind of like, I know where this is going. I don't care about her. I don't care about the woman with the black eyes. I don't care about the story. It's written beautifully, which is kind of frustrating. Like, I wish there was nothing I liked
really
about it, but there's that. It's like it's told really nicely.
The descriptive language, like chef's kiss.
Yeah. But
do you guys think? And I know that the black-eyed woman promised that I won't take your soul until you use all 7 wishes, and I feel like. Do you guys notice that she got a little more and more morally corrupt after each wish that she used? Do you think it was just her reaction to the shitstorm that she placed upon herself with the wishes? Or do you feel like a little bit of her soul got seeped each time?
I think... Oh, go ahead, Bella.
I was going to say, it felt very Horcruxy. Like each time she made a wish, a piece of her soul was given over to the fairy godmother, or the lady with the black eyes.
Yeah.
That's just because of how like her detachment from her friends grew. And it's like, who's to say that it was her losing her soul versus like gaining the privilege, like made her become this person? I don't know, but it did feel like by the 7th time I claim you. It was like by the 7th time you're already gone.
Yes.
You know, like that's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think?
I think the book was trying to get us to think that of like each time you use one of these wishes, your soul gets corrupted, and eventually you don't have a soul to give up. I've already taken it little by little by little. The way I kind of want to interpret it is I would have loved it to be a moment where Eleanor calls out the black-eyed woman, is like, you've corrupted my soul every time you've done this. And she's like, no, I did nothing. Like,
you did this
too. I haven't corrupted your soul or taken your soul at all. You've had it. It's you. You've done this to yourself. And I would have appreciated that more. Because she asked the father, the priest, you know, what's the nature of a soul? And of course the priest was like, you're a woman, stop asking questions, go away.
Stop thinking.
Yeah, gosh, go look
so
pretty
boring.
somewhere.
I love that he said this will lead to hysteria, and I was like, "Oh!"
I was like, "Oh, sign of the times." Well, Rico, I think that's a good point of the ending being up to interpretation, because there was definitely a part of me at the end. So I haven't decided, and I think this is where like my frustration echoes Rico's of like, not that I need every single answer, but you gave us a lot of answers, a lot of questions, and a lot of different answers to those questions. And one of them being, is the lady with the black eyes real? And if Eleanor is the one killing them, because I think that was pretty clear based on the answer that those 3 people were killed by her hands. Was the canary killed by her, though? I have lots of questions about that. Like, did the canary just die, or did she kill him for the shoes? Like, I don't know.
Well, the neck was snapped.
The neck was snapped. See? Okay.
Yeah.
That could have happened. And part of me is like, were the shoes really magic? I don't know.
The shoes
like,
were
did
stolen.
From her?
Do you remember in the beginning of the book?
Oh, there were stolen shoes.
They said that a shoe store was robbed.
Okay, I thought I heard. Yep. I forgot. I was like, did I imagine that? Maybe not. So, okay. So, I don't know if the woman with the black eyes is real. Because you also learned that she had the history when she was younger of like hysterics and violence, and like these dissociative episodes where she would just like not remember things happening. And she was like, I was a bad kid. What are you talking about?
I need those answers. I need those answers.
I made a note about that. I was like, what the fuck's up with her childhood?
I'm genuinely curious. I haven't decided if the woman with the black eyes is real. But then there was the mention of like something in the family about like the Pembrokes estate having like this weird history of like, so it's like, we could have both, that the lady with the black eyes does corrupt somebody who is desperate enough. Because she seems to have these answers. Again, could be a figment of her imagination. We have a very unreliable narrator. Like the minute she was like, I don't remember last night after Lizzie's murder, I was like, unreliable narrator. Everything you say now, we cannot take as fact. Like, you are not remembering things. But is the lady with the black eyes real, but the wishes are fake?
So here's my take. I took it as the woman with the black eyes was real, but to get what she wanted, she would literally, black her out and make her take out her wishes. My only question, though, is the giant accident in the middle of the road, right? How did Eleanor cause that?
I would love to go back and read that section because I feel like she had like mentioned something about the carriage and the driver.
There was the little boy with the hoop who ran under the horse. Rico is going crazy, so I'm going to let him go.
Rico, say something. Say something. What is it, boy?
I'm with you, Megan. I didn't even consider the one with the black eyes wasn't real at all. My understanding of it, I was with you, Megan, that Eleanor is making these wishes, and the woman with the black eyes is making them happen by allowing Eleanor to do it herself.
Yeah,
But if you look at the wishes, there are. Well, okay, I'll go one by one.
Yeah.
The shoes were stolen
Yes.
by somebody. We don't know that, right? I think Eleanor stole them.
Yes.
Okay.
Lizzie, in a fugue state or whatever.
Yeah. The woman with the black. Let's call her the woman. The woman made her make it happen.
Yeah.
Lizzie was killed by Eleanor again. She didn't remember what happened. In a fugue state, she killed Lizzie. The third one, I think that might just be. Well, I don't remember the exact circumstances of it, but I think the third one and the fourth one, changing his mind about marrying Felicity, and the miscarriage were already in progress. I don't think, like, she was already convincing Charles not to marry Felicity. And I think the miscarriage, she was taking stuff.
Yeah.
I think it was the stuff that she was taking that caused the miscarriage. I don't think it was really a wish coming true. As for the accident, I don't remember the circumstances of the accident. I'm going to chalk that one up as to just coincidental.
Okay.
Because
the accident was Charles.
Yeah, the accident itself was very coincidental. And I think it was the little seed that Eleanor planted in Charles that ultimately led him to break it off.
Mm-hmm.
The money was Eleanor killing Mrs. Cleary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mr. Pembroke, she killed him. So I think it was all things that she did except for the accident itself was just a coincidence.
Yeah. So I didn't get to finish that. I do think that she's real and that it's Eleanor. Like all she does is maybe when she takes that piece of the soul, she goes into that fugue state and does it. Like I think the wish is that like she uninhibits Eleanor from these things that she actually wants to do.
I don't know if she's real anymore. You put that question in my head and it makes a lot of sense. I don't think she's real. I think that explains her childhood.
She has a history of missing memories and the feralness. But what got me early on in the book is that every time, even after the first wish, she made the wish and immediately she woke up in her bed. She doesn't remember doing anything the rest of the day. She doesn't remember going to sleep. And that was the same thing every single time that I recall. And so early
other
on
than Charles. Other than Charles. That's the only one where she like, well, no, actually keep going, Megan. Keep going. I'm going to do some research.
And I would have to go back and reread to solidify it. But every time I thought about it, after she made a major wish, she would, and I just woke up in my bed and la-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, wait a minute, what happened to the rest of the day? What happened after you made your wish? You just went along and did your chores and whatever, so early on, I was very suspicious that I was like, oh, she's doing this. Or the black-eyed woman is making someone do these things on her behalf. Like, right, with Lizzie, she said she woke up with a damp apron. Lizzie was drowned, just things like that were very suspicious to me. So my ultimate theory was that black-eyed woman real, taking advantage, using Ella to carry out her own wishes, essentially.
Yeah, I'm changing my answer. The woman wasn't real. I don't think she was real. Ultimately, I think I think it was the moment she appeared was when Eleanor was Leah. Who was it?
Leah.
When she left, right? So she was
the trigger.
Mr. Pembroke's prey, correct? Mm-hmm. And then she left. So Eleanor no longer had that protection. She was next to be preyed upon. So she went into the library to protect herself. I think the stress of that, of knowing I'm next, he's coming for me, triggered this imaginary woman.
Okay.
But it explains why she was the way as a kid. Because I only wrote down one of them, but one of the quotes from, I think Mrs. Cleary said, "You were very difficult. You used to scamper around the horse, screeching and snapping at the servants the first year I knew you, and you wouldn't say a word even when you were spoken to." Like, she was like a little feral child.
Yeah. Which the doctor said she went into that type of state after her mother died, after her parents died. So she just snapped, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Eleanor made up this woman to give herself the permission to do certain things. And at the very, very end, and I may be misremembering this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but she was running to the churchyard, correct? Mm-hmm. But it had been dug up, right?
Yeah.
So how was it? The way I picture it was just a hole now. Was it just like a
they dug out, from what I recall, they dug out the graves because they were going to make a park or something, right? What was the situation?
I don't remember exactly.
So the holy ground essentially was gone because they just tore it all up and there was just a hole in the ground.
So there's just a pit. So I think the ending, because she talks about the woman coming out of the shadows and darkness, the book ends with Eleanor running into darkness. It's like, I'm tired of bargains. She runs at the woman in the darkness. I think she just threw herself into the pit.
But then how do you explain the epilogue? They
just hadn't found her yet.
But he said they searched like all night and then into the morning.
I don't know how big the pit is. Did they specifically say the pit? The graveyard? I don't think they did. I think that's where it's clever wording. I think they hadn't found her yet, so it's led us to believe that she's just gone. But I think realistically, that's what happened. She threw herself into the pit, killed herself. Because none of the wishes... Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, speaking of the epilogue, I liked the inspector. He was so like, I'm calling you on your shit, girl.
The inspector is my favorite character.
Oh, he was so
by
cool.
far.
He was so cool. He's like, you're not fooling me. You're a murderer.
And Aoife. I like Aoife too.
Yeah. Ooh, sorry. Aoife and Daisy.
Oh, yeah. That's another question. Their money had been missing and then they were gone, right? So I
wasn't talking about that. I was talking about their
the romance?
Oh, yeah. They were in love. Yeah.
Get it, girls.
That's the happy ending I wanted to
Where's
see,
that storyline?
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, follow them, girl.
Which I was curious. I knew Daisy was into Aoife. I couldn't quite gauge Aoife's interest.
They were definitely
together
in the kitchen.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Aoife was blushing, like
they got
just
laying together
out
in the kitchen.
Yeah. Rico.
I just look at that. She's really young. She's like really like
You're
Daisy.
naive.
Look, I've never been a 15-year-old girl, so I don't know what it's like.
That was a real relationship that I appreciated in this book.
I wanted that one more.
Much better love story than freaking Eleanor and Charles.
When I started to get to that portion of the story, I think I was talking on the phone with you, Jason, and I was like, how far are you into the book? Because I want to say something and you hadn't gotten to it yet. So I was like, okay, I'll just save it for the podcast. But I felt like the kid from Princess Bride where he was like, is this a kissing book? Did you kiss me? Because I don't know. I knew it was a fairy tale, but I just wasn't expecting that, I guess. I'm naive in myself. And I was just like, oh. And then when it got to the actual getting down to the get down, I was like, oh, wait, this isn't the After Dark special. So I shouldn't expect to get anything.
No. It was all pretty, PG-13.
Well, except for
PG.
Sexual assault and then the violence.
PG-13
There's a lot of slapping
nowadays.
in this book.
That's PG-13 nowadays, folks. These kids, they've been corrupted.
Well, if you listen to freaking publishers, all these books are YA, even though there's definitely not YA themes in them.
Is this a YA book?
I looked up Goodreads and it said YA. It's like, this is not a YA book.
Not YA.
But
I see that.
It's written by a woman and it's a fairy tale, so it must be a YA. Because women can't write real literature.
Don't get me started on that. But to go back to, so I just reread the carriage section after she makes the wish. It doesn't seem like, she did anything. Like, she's just like, I waited a few hours for her to come home, and like I was dozing off at my sewing, at my mending. Like, it's not like the usual, like, I woke up in a fugue state all of a sudden. Don't know what happened. I didn't do anything. Like, it was far less suspicious, which again kind of feeds into the like, is the woman real or fake?
I can support your theory that she is not real because it's starting to make sense to me, but I want to live in the world where she is real. Yeah. Because
it's more fun that way. Yeah.
Because I want to ask you guys this question, right? Mm-hmm. She clearly was like, oh, Charles's ancestor used the wishes to get money for the family, right? That was said in the book, that she's like, oh, my assumption is that his ancestor definitely used his wishes because he was like an a-hole and he was the one who came into money for them by doing shitty shit. So my question to you guys was, if the black-eyed woman is real, who else in the family, assuming the Pembroke family, has used her? And I have a theory, but I want to hear your theory.
I think Mr. Pembroke did.
I agree.
Because his wife died. His 3 daughters
died.
Eleanor's mom arguably could have been one of them. She was a servant in the household. Like, who knows? Like, people died and left all the time. Like, I don't know. But those 4, the daughter and his wife dying, I was like, those have to be wish consequences.
And my thing is...
And why he drinks so much and why he numbs himself.
Well, he's a terrible person, i.e. he has no soul, right? But Eleanor even said, like, how did an amazing person like Mrs. Pembroke end up with this dude? Which one could be a sign of the times, because, you just marry whoever shows interest in you when you're young, and then you live with whoever they turn out to be.
Yeah.
But that could also be he wasn't a jerk, or he was always a jerk and he wanted her. She would never be with him because he was a jerk. So he got her as a result of a wish. That was kind of one of my assumptions.
Well,
boom.
But I did think like his deteriorating state, because she mentioned like he wrote her a love letter, and like they did have 4 children together, and like it wasn't. But then Eleanor did say something like, things were like that before. Like, he did do stuff with his wife around, but like maybe not always. Mm-hmm. Like, there was a lot, again, the unreliable narrator and the fact that she's not like omnipresent. Yeah. You do not know what's happening all times.
Also her interpretation. Like, again, thinking of the times, right? Like, guys could take advantage and do whatever they wanted. And even though the inspector knew that he was assaulting his mates, he's like, well, there's not much I can do. La, la, la.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, dude.
I mean, they made it a point in the book to say it's like your word against mine, right?
Yeah.
Who are you going to believe, a lowly, jobless maid or a lord?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patriarchy. All
right. So... what are our final thoughts? Do we ultimately like it? Do we not like it?
I mean, I really liked the book, and like I would recommend it to people, but like with the heavy caveat of like, this is not a happy book. It is not a Cinderella retelling. But if you like unhappy endings and sort of like books that have you questioning what you just read, like if you liked Inception, this would be a great book for you, because I don't know if the lady with the black eyes was real or not. I'm questioning it too much, which is frustrating, but also nice. Like, I put in the notes, like, kind of liked it, kind of liked the ending. I don't know. I think I did, but I do sort of wish there was a little bit more of a resolution. Like, the fact that you were like, they maybe just hadn't looked in the pit yet. I was like, God damn it, that's a good point.
Why do you make sense?
Because I was all about like, I think maybe she did go into the shadows because like she was above the law or whatever. I don't know.
You haven't granted my wish.
Yeah, that also was really shady. Like, you didn't actually grant that 7th wish, so.
That was the wish. You can only be above the law if you're dead.
That was my interpretation.
That
was my thought too.
Because she was like, you can't have your riches because you're under 21. You think I could just change British law?
Yeah.
Overnight, meaning, i.e., I can't just make you above the law because that's not a thing that I can make happen.
I'm gonna have my cake and eat it too, and say that the woman was real in the sense that it was some sort of entity, but it was fake in the sense that she didn't do anything. She didn't grant any single wish. She didn't do anything. It was all Eleanor's doing, and I think that is supported by the text.
But unknowingly.
Unknowingly, yes.
Unknowingly,
yes. But there's nothing that was done that was supernatural. It was all very possible for any person to do. Circumstantial, coincidence, accidents, murder, blah, blah, blah. So that's going to be my final take, is that this presence does exist because there's some sort of history.
Yeah.
But I didn't really grant any wishes. I didn't really do anything other than with that little voice in your head.
Yeah.
I do want to think that she was a fae creature who was just there to mess with Eleanor, because that's great. I don't know. I love books that allow me to create theories.
Me too. That's why I say it's the shit.
This is a good book. Yeah. This is a good book.
Anything that leads to this much discussion,
yes,
like back and forth, and like this much like difference in opinion is a good book. So Rico, what do you think?
I like it more now that we've discussed it, and I like it more now that I have the theory that the woman wasn't really a demon or a fake creature. At least that's my takeaway. But I still think the book was shit. I think it's still frustrating.
Shock.
There's too many unanswered questions. The fact that it's not a Cinderella retelling, which is like what I signed up for, like that's what I wanted, and this isn't it whatsoever. I didn't like Eleanor. I didn't like Charles. I did like
Charles was very two-dimensional.
Like who the fuck am I rooting for? Like, I mean, it's an interesting look at Eleanor's descent into madness, I guess, and violence, and that's interesting. But I didn't like her enough to really care. And like I mentioned before, because of the formatting of the book and the 7 wishes, like I already knew where it was going. So that took away some of the urgency getting through it. It was just like, I'm just here waiting for the end. I know what's going to happen. But like I said, the writing is really nice, and it did create some questions and things for us to discuss, which was always fun. So I like it more now than I did in the beginning, but nah.
That's fair. We're allowed to have differences in opinions. So agree to disagree.
I disagree with that.
I disagree that we can disagree.
I disagree.
How dare you?
Oh my goodness.
Well, really quick, I do want to point out this for people who care about this. On Goodreads, it has a 3.16 rating.
I think that's a fair rating.
Which is, I feel like on the lower side of average.
Is there any sort of talk about there being other books, or was this just a one and done?
I think it's a one and done.
It's a one and done. She has another book that's coming out in 2023. But it's not, I don't know if it's from the same universe or not, but it's a different story.
Oh, is it a Sleeping Beauty adaptation?
Oh my goodness.
Maybe Snow White?
Where the Sleeping Beauty just pounds energy drinks and never sleeps.
Yeah, it's either Sleeping Beauty or Beauty and the Beast, because I think it said something about thorns or something.
Oh, the thorn remains?
Yeah. So I'm like,
What is that?
I don't know.
Tour de force of fairy bargains.
Yes, Faye, Privet, give it to me.
A dance with the Fae will change everything.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't know what tale that would be. Know. Your Pan? I don't.
I think it's just. I don't think it's a retelling. I think it's just a Fae story. If you want a good retelling of Cinderella, read Cinder by Marissa Meyer.
I did like that one.
The first book in the Lunar Chronicles. I think that's great. I think that's the way you do a retelling.
That's an excellent YA fairy tale retelling.
Yes.
Very good world building.
Yes.
credible characters. Some of the dialogue's a little childish, but it's a YA book, so take it for what it is.
But the bones of Cinderella are there, and then she does something different.
And you get all the different princesses or fairy tales, I should say. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. So, what are y'all reading next?
I've been making my way through a bunch of detective novels. Like, this was my year, I guess, to get into like Agatha Christie and like James M. Cain and stuff like that. But because it's me, of course, I'm also going to be reading some like sci-fi fantasy detective novels. And so the next book I'm reading is called The Spare Man by, I believe it's Mary Robinette Kowal. I may be misremembering and or mispronouncing that. But it's like a detective noir on like a star cruiser. And I think... Yeah. So it's detective, but in space. So hopefully that's going to be fun. But that's next for me.
That sounds right up your alley.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I took Rico's brain and I made a book. I'm just going to continue reading A Court of Thorn and Roses series and hopefully starting Priory of the Orange Tree sometime soon. Mm-hmm. I bought it at the Barnes & Noble going out of business sale. So
nice.
It is on the list. What about you, Megan? What are you going to listen to?
I actually, after this discussion, kind of want to go back and find more fucked up fae stories, because that was a genre that I really used to love, and that I like back in my Holly Black days, So I kind of want to, open to suggestions. Send me your recommendations.
Have you read A Court of Thorn and Roses?
I haven't. Does that need to be on my list?
That's all fae. Yeah,
love it.
That's high fae, all the different fairies.
All fae all day.
Yeah, you'd love it. And it kind of is, again, like a loose Sleeping Beauty retelling. Loose.
Okay.
But the bones are there. Like in terms of, I think it'd be closer to a Beauty and the Beast retelling. But there is a point where it turns into a completely different book, and it's really good.
Okay.
I think you'd like it.
Good.
Yeah. And it's a little spicy. Just a little bit of spice.
Add a little spice.
Add a little bit of spice.
All right, listeners, you heard her. She wants some fae recommendations. So if you have any good fae books, send them our way so we can pass them along.
Yeah.
And also, if you've read this book, let us know what you thought of the woman and the ending. Or even if you haven't read it, what do you think happened based on what we said?
Are you going to read it? Let us know. And of course, you can always find us and share your thoughts on the book on social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Shit We've Read. And our next episode is going to be Dawn by Octavia E. Butler. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is a revelatory post-apocalyptic narrative that deftly explores gender and race through the eyes of characters struggling to adapt during a pivotal time of crisis and change. Very excited. I've heard good things about this book, and this author, and I want to dive in. So, yeah, I think I picked out this book a year ago, and was like, let's find a time to read it.
I know.
And now it's finally happening, so I'm excited.
Finally, yeah.
I'm ready. So, all right, you guys. Well, thanks for talking with us, Megan. It's always good to have you. Do you want to plug any socials, Megan?
No.
Or that's fair. That's fair. Well, thank you for. Don't perceive me. I never post on social media, so yeah.
Unless you want to see my dog,
Yeah, this is the puppy. But no, it's good to have you. Thank you again for joining us, and good to see you, Rico, as always.
Likewise.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.
And they all lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
Shit We've Read is hosted by Laura Benson, Jason Rico, and Bella Romero, with music by Joshua Chilton and editing by Jason Rico.
To join the discussion on this and all other books we've read, find us at Shit We've Read on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok.
For more information about us or to request transcripts, please visit shitwe'veread.com.
This podcast is part of the Bilo Network. Visit bilonetwork.com for more great geeky podcasts.
Thanks so much for listening.